I think a big thing too is I had nothing to lose, right?
Yes. Love it.
I
Love it. Yeah.
literally had nothing to lose.
Mm.
So that was definitely a big factor for me. And I do know, like my dad said to me one day, cool, if you fail, doesn't matter. Just start it again.
Welcome back to the Marketing Muscle Up podcast show. In today's episode, I am pumped. I'm thrilled because I've got a special guest in the house, and her name is Rebekah Strachan. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
It's so good to have you on. We've been talking about this for a long time. And before we crack into it, I do want to read out your bio. It's a pretty impressive one if I can. But before I do, I want to talk about what we're talking about in today's episode. I've known Rebekah or Beck. I call you Beck. And I've known Beck for a few years now. I'm pretty sure we met at a Filex event in Brisbane. I was hosting or facilitating an event. I remember very clearly there was a group of about 8 or 10 of us in a circle. I asked some questions, went around, and you had some amazing answers, and you were really moving and shaking. I can feel that you were a leader in what you were doing, and you caught my attention. You caught my attention as a great business operator at that time. I think that was about 3 years ago. Beck, would that be right? 3 years ago, Mish? Something like that?
Yeah, I think it was about 2019. So yeah.
2019, well before COVID days.
Yeah.
And it was great. So I want to just, tell everybody what you do. So you're based in Brisbane. You've got Australia's first HIIT-to-the-beat workout experience. And even that, I want to sort of dive into a bit. And you started this because there was a need in the industry in regards to, you hired out gym space. You were doing these cool beat workouts. You were just pretty much like filling up the sessions, and all of a sudden you said, hey, I need my own space because I just don't have any space in these gyms we're at. Now, fast forward, you've set up an amazing studio. You've moved to a brand new studio, like it's epic. So anybody who's been to a warehouse space, you've now moved to a shop front, and you're really up there as an up and coming business that is starting to roll out more locations. You've been a finalist, Young Entrepreneur finalist in 2020, 2021, and 2022. You're shaking the ground and you're making your mark in the fitness industry, but also in the business world. Now, I do want to talk to you about a few things today. Number one, I want to talk about entrepreneurship. I want to talk about female entrepreneurship because I know that you've had a few conversations and I've seen some stuff on Facebook and you're really sparking up some conversations there. I'm super interested into that. And you're a great marketer. You've been in our Marketing Ninja program and Scale program, and you're doing some cool things. So I'm pumped for this episode, Beck.
Thank you. No, I'm pumped too.
Now, there's one thing that I know about you. You're always looking for opportunities, and you always turn up for opportunities more than probably anybody I know. And you put yourself in those locations. Tell me about that, because you've had to do that through your history, putting yourself at somewhere, going to the next place. It's like that typical entrepreneurship, right? We jump off a cliff and we make the parachute on the way down. Tell me about your early story, Beck.
So initially I knew I wanted to be in business. I have known for a long time, even though I maybe didn't acknowledge it myself. My dad is in business. So I grew up in a family where I saw what running a small business is. He's an engineer, runs his own engineering company, and it essentially started where he would have his office under the house. It was the bottom level of the house that then went to its own office building and expanded. And I saw the incredible opportunities that you can get when you do business well. And so I think from having that upbringing, I've always had an entrepreneurial part of me. And I left school, went to uni, started studying teaching because I thought, yep, that's what I want to do. Realized probably 6 months in, it's absolutely not what I want to do.
Yep.
And I just remember one day calling my dad and saying, hey, will you teach me how to be an entrepreneur? Like it was this new buzzword, entrepreneur.
Yep.
And from there, I started doing some small business courses, but then transferred into a business degree and did a business degree. And I kind of left that knowing I wanted to do something in the fitness industry, but really not sure what it was I wanted to do. And so I started as a personal trainer. And I was working as a group fitness instructor. And I very quickly came to this roadblock in my life where I loved group fitness. It was my joy. It was the thing I do every day for the rest of my life if I could. But personal training was my bread and butter. You know, you earn significantly more doing that than you do group fitness. And so that's when I was like, I have to do something here. And so I actually started running these small group training classes, quote unquote classes, where they were 4 people at a time on the gym floor. And so I started running those, and they very quickly became my personal training business. So they grew very quickly. So then I expanded that and took these 25 sessions a week I was running, and I actually started hiring the group fitness studio off the gym that I was working at. So then it kind of became this thing of my 25 sessions a week became 1 session a week. And that's when my brain started really doing the math on, I can earn the same amount doing 1 hour of work as I can doing 25 hours of work. So that then gives me all of this extra time to create the program. Right. And so I invested the next sort of 6 to 12 months. I took myself to the US, saw what was happening in the industry there, and very quickly saw this need in the market, specifically in Australia, for a group fitness exercise experience that was like a personal training experience, but like a group fitness class on steroids. Right. So this, and considering this was, I want to say 2015. So this is like F45 at that time, I think had 2 locations in Brisbane. So it was the beginning of the boutique studio experience in Australia. And it was the beginning of functional training in Australia. And so I essentially created a concept that combined those things, which, as you mentioned, it then grew very quickly. I was running about 14 classes a week in the gym, and it just got to the point that the amount of rent I was paying to even just do that, I was like, I actually need my own space. So yeah.
And 2015, you've had a lot of awards in the young entrepreneurship. Can you just, kind of take us back? How old were you at 2015, if I can ask?
2015, I was 22.
Okay. So this is interesting because I love the journeys of, people are always looking around. How do I get a bigger space? I'm working as a PT. I'm too old. I'm too young. I'm not smart enough. I can't do it. All those kind of things that pop up, as a 22-year-old, 23-year-old, you're saying, I need my own space. What goes through your head in that world? I know you said you had your father had his own business. But what happens through your head when you got to outlay expenses and back yourself and things like that?
Yeah, it was the most nerve-wracking experience of my life. The years 2015, 2016, 2017. So those 3 years, I feel like I learned more in those 3 years than what I probably did in 10 years normally, right? So the biggest scare, obviously, for anyone who is going from a hired space to a studio is rent. That was the biggest scare for me. I had a little bit of a like an in-between move that I did where I actually found a company that had a warehouse that I subleased.
Right.
So it was on a month-by-month basis. So that enabled me to test the waters a little bit.
That's smart, testing the waters.
Yeah. And so that's when I initially invested what I had saved. So everything that I was earning from those classes, I saved to put towards the business. And that's when I purchased my own equipment, installed flooring and mirrors. And, so it was probably like a $20,000 investment there that I did initially. But then obviously it gave me this opportunity to go, all right, this is my next step. It enabled me to then grow the business again because we were in our own space, to then move into our own proper full commercial lease premises. That was scary.
Love it. And you got a very similar story to myself, Beck. Those early years, I got a studio, 18, 19, and it really scared the hell out of me. You know what I mean? You just don't know what to do because you're so young. But I love business when we're young. You know, I think we're always think we're young, but when you're young, and there's a beautiful part of it, because, you know, call it naive, call it green, call it, you know, just go out and get it done. You haven't been burnt before. There's less things at risk factors and all those kind of items. It feels a bit freer. I know when you're there, it doesn't feel free, but it does. There is something magical about it in those times, if you can lean in to that youngness as well.
I think a big thing too is I had nothing to lose.
Yes.
Right?
Love it.
Literally had nothing to lose. So that was definitely a big factor for me. And I do know, like, my dad said to me one day, cool, if you fail, doesn't matter. Just start again.
If you fail, doesn't matter. Yeah, great. Awesome.
So I think going in with that mindset was definitely hugely beneficial. But then again, I agree with you. When you're younger, you don't have the other thing too is I hadn't come from a huge corporate job where I was earning 100K plus, right?
Yeah.
So you don't lose that as well.
Beck, we're unemployable. Let's be honest. Okay.
I did corporate for 9 months.
Right.
I loved it. It was amazing. It was great getting dressed every day, you know, going to the office. But I am just not a good person bound by the hours of 9 to 5.
Beck, let's talk about the other part, the other interesting part you did. I want to touch on, which is you call your so your studio is RBB.
Yeah.
And it's Australia's first, you know, HIIT-to-the-beat workout experience. Can you explain to me how you become Australia's first of anything and Australia's first HIIT-to-the-beat? I'm really interested in this part of it, because I think this is where your marketing genius and trademarks come into place. And I think this is where, you know, it's a different story here. You're not just opening up a studio, but you're opening up something essentially that has the potential to really grow and expand around the world. Talk to me about this whole HIIT-to-the-beat and how do you become first at something? How do you know when you're first at something?
Yeah. On the, just a quick note on what you said in terms of, like, I'm not just opening a studio, I'm actually opening a program. That was potentially the most challenging component of doing what I did. Was that I was learning how to run a studio without a franchise or helping me. But then also too, I was creating a program at the same time. And so that took so much of my time and so much of my energy. So it was challenging in the early days, but in order to be the first at something, so it was really interesting. I had been, obviously, as I mentioned, to the US. I'd been to a lot of studios, quote unquote studios, here in Australia.
Yes.
And I just noticed that there was this need for HIIT training in a group fitness setting. So all of the HIIT training that was and generally is on the market is circuit based. Right? So you have stations, you go around stations, do a thing, there's a timer, you move to the next. And without being rude to other businesses, because I think what they're doing is incredible, they're all kind of just doing a variation of the same thing. Right? Whereas what we're doing is we're taking the old school aerobic feel that your mum and, you know, grandmas used to do, making it cool, so making it current, but then revolutionizing it. So firstly, using music, like current original Spotify music, but then also too tapping into functional training in a way that has been proven to be highly effective. Putting it in intervals that, again, highly effective, but then also giving you that community experience that people want and that people chase. So there was nothing like this on the market. And to be completely honest with you, I created it because I wanted to do it. I had been to the US and had fallen in love with SoulCycle and the experience that they can create on a bike. I was 22 years old and did not have $100,000 to buy bikes, right? So I created SoulCycle on the ground, is essentially what I did, because I had no equipment.
You didn't have the equipment, you didn't have the money, so you got to create your own. Outstanding. Great. What a great story. And so through this whole process, and I get it, you're opening up a studio plus you're doing a program, two very different things that anybody has to conquer and get to that ground. Let's kind of move into the other part of the journey where I've seen you talk a lot about, which is, first of all, I mean, as a young entrepreneur, and I understand this solely when I had a studio and I was really young, and there's a few things that came up for me at this time, and I think they're coming up for you, is where, leadership, you got a team, you got to grow up a bit faster than maybe your other friends who are going out and doing their thing. You got to turn up. Tell me about that journey, and how that, how that, if someone's listening to this and, they're in a similar age and they're going, oh, no, I'm too young. I'll wait till I'm 30 or 40 or 50, whatever, and I can't do it. Tell me about this mindset that you need to get through these parts.
I truly believe that we're a special breed. Entrepreneurs. I think it's ingrained in who we are. I really just don't think you can become an entrepreneur. I think you're born one, or you've at least had that inherent desire inside of you since you were young, where you aren't satisfied with the status quo. A big thing, and I'm sure you relate with this as well, is that my priorities are not the same priorities as my friends. They haven't been for a long time. Like, I never really was into just wasting my days. Not that it's wasting your days, but I always had and I can even remember being a teenager and just having such a passion inside of me to want to make a difference in the world, and to want to do something, to be a leader. You want to lead something, and so it's been challenging. It's been really challenging in terms of, one, people understanding. Two, we still have human desires, right? Where we still want love, we still want affection, we want friendship, we want all of those things. But you just have this weird part of your brain where the most important thing in the world is to work. You can't stop thinking about it. And I think that has been the most challenging thing to admit. Because rather than living for the weekend, which, we live for the weekends as well, and it's a good balance, but we actually just love to work. So, and I think, like, people listening to this, for example, they'll know straight away. If they're an entrepreneur, they'll relate immediately.
I love this. It's not a work-life balance. There's no such thing. And, it's interesting as you progress through, you see at different ages, you're wanting different things as a business owner. And my mum always used to tell me back, she always said, Richard, you're working too much, smell the roses, slow down a little bit. And God, she was right, but gee, she was wrong as well, and every way we need to smell where we're at, but in every way we need to just go charging how we want to do it. And it is a tough balance. Let's continue that on as I've seen you doing a few amazing, you've been a Young Entrepreneur Finalist in 2020, 21, 2022, but you're also going out there and waving the female flag. I know some people go, oh, aren't we all the same? We're entrepreneurs, we're business owners. What's the difference, Beck? Tell me about, female entrepreneurs versus a male entrepreneur, and what's your take on this, Beck? Because I know you've written about it a few times, and every time you do, you get some amazing comments and conversations going through. Take me through this process.
So there's been a couple of different experiences I've had as a female entrepreneur. I think definitely I came into the business world not realizing there actually was a hierarchy and expecting that I would be taken as seriously as as everyone else. So I had a couple of things working against me that I learned very quickly. Number one is I was young. I was very young. Number two, I was quite naive. But number three, I was a young female. The other thing that also doesn't work in my favor is I actually look younger. So when I was 22, I looked like I was 18.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Because, yes, you do look young, Beck. You're always looking super young.
Thank you.
It's all that. It's all that RBB training. You know what I mean? Come to RBB and look 10 years younger.
I'm actually 60 years old right now. It's amazing. But so I think because of that, the struggle I had to get my first commercial lease signed. Because real estate agents didn't take me seriously. at all. Um, Obviously, I had a huge amount of issues leaving the gym that I
Yep.
was working for. Again, people trying to just walk all over me and take advantage of me. But I'm experiencing it more and more as I'm now growing as well, where they think you're naive. And
Mm,
so, as women, we almost have to prove ourselves twice as much to have a seat at the table.
mm,
And it's really interesting because I'm definitely surrounded, like, I definitely wouldn't say the people in my life think less of me. Like, my dad, for example, has always had big picture conversations with me. I've never felt mistreated in any way.
hmm.
My boyfriend, he's very much we're equal. But I've just found in business, number one, we have to prove ourselves
Yep.
so much more. But then in complete honesty, as females, we actually just work differently than men.
Mm,
And it's something I've fought for so long, and I've brought myself to a position where I realize, and you'll see this like with working with Joey,
mm,
right? She thinks with her emotions.
mm.
It's the way that we operate as women, and it's our biggest strength and our biggest weakness. Because we take offense to things, but then also too, if we feel like we've been mistreated, or there's a staff member that's done something and there's a conflict, it ruins our day, right? It
Mm.
really impacts how we work. Whereas men have really, really good way, like they can shut stuff off and they can just focus. The other thing that is also a huge benefit to women and a huge benefit for us is disadvantage is we can think of a million things at one time.
Yes, you can. And
So
you can do a million things at one time too, Beck.
we can be doing everything all at once, all at the same time, which is great, right? Because we remember that we have to do X, Y, Z, plus the dishes need to be washed, plus I need to take this out, plus it's my anniversary next week,
Mm-hmm.
plus I need to organize this, blah, 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 blah. Whereas
Mm.
a guy has the ability to focus on a task and they're focusing on
I
a
don't think it's
task.
the ability, Beck. I think it's just we can only do one thing at a time, Beck. It's not a
Yeah.
skill we have. Okay, we can only do one thing. That's the reason why, Beck, I have 80 to 90% of my team all females. If I don't know if you
Yes,
noticed that, but they're all
I
females because I can only do one thing. So we need
have.
we need some people that can actually do some work.
Totally. And so that is our greatest strength, right?
Yeah.
Is that we can do a lot of things, but then also too, it's a huge weakness
Mm,
because it means that quite often we do a million things good, but not well,
mm.
right? And we don't have the ability to shut emotions out. So that's been a growing process for me. I'm also managing a team of 8 females.
Yeah.
So I'm also dealing with 8 hormone cycles.
Right. So that's what I need to learn more of, Beck. You know what I mean?
How to deal with the hormone cycles.
Right. So we can definitely exchange notes on that later, hey?
Yeah, we definitely can. But yeah, so being a female in business, I think there has never been in a time in the world that we have more opportunities.
Yep.
And I don't think that we are discounted in any way, but I do think there is still this unspoken hierarchy where we feel like we need to prove that we belong where we are, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Well, I'm definitely here waving your flag and every female's flag too. I love it. And
Thank you, sir.
it's I remember the first day that I met you, as I said, I think there was, I don't know who was in that room, but you definitely had a distinct ability to say, I want to lead, I want to step up. You were clear, you were precise. And I personally think that anybody that has that ability has some big things. And I'm obviously not a female, so I don't know it from your viewpoint. I know that in our program, we somehow gravitate. I think we have a lot of probably more female mix than males, I would say.
Yep.
I don't know why, but that's just the way that, I don't know. Females are great learners. They're great educators. I mean, saying that males are too, but again, I think maybe there's something in that, it's like you want to better yourself. You want to prove, like you said,
I think also too, we know what we don't know.
Mm.
Like I definitely, like an example for me when I joined com was I knew that I did not know how to market my business. And I needed someone, and I was actively looking for ways. I was taking myself to conferences and Filex and all these things as often as I possibly could, because I was so desperate to know what I didn't know. Right. And so I think that is a big part. I'm not saying that that's women in particular, but maybe this could be the case, is that we know, hey, I don't know how to do that. So I actually need to find someone who can show me how to do that.
Yeah, great. Love the concepts in that. And I'd love to hear from women who are listening to this, and guys too, and say, hey, what do you think about this? Do you think what Beck is saying, are you resonating with this? Is this what you're going through or not? Love to know on your views on this. Beck, tell me about, I'd love to know two sort of more questions for you. I've got some big, broad questions, so I'll try to tighten them up. But I'd love to know maybe first, some really big lessons that you've learned. You said you were negotiating your rental. Is there something that I personally learned from mistakes? I think we all kind of do, but I love to hear the journeys of someone's mistakes. We can always share the war stories when we're on the war, right? But when we're in it, we have no idea. Is there a war story that you can share, a really big mistake and the lesson that you've learned from it?
How honest do you want me to be?
Well, we know honesty always gets more listens, Beck. So I'd love to have some honesty, depending on how you want to get to that.
Okay.
All
So
right,
I've had a couple of huge lessons in business. The first one was when I attempted to open the studio in 2016.
Right.
So as I mentioned, I was at a commercial gym, and I was running those classes in a commercial gym. I then moved. During the relocation, I was served with a restraint of trade from the gym that I was working at, because they believed I was attempting to steal their members, which resulted in a huge legal battle. So put on top of opening your own studio, creating a program, fighting the biggest gym chain in Australia, in a legal battle. So that there was the hardest point in business ever. That takes the cake. That there made me wake up every day and question, how much do I actually want to do this? And I still have pages and pages in my my notebook of plans that I had made to pay for the things that I had signed up for. For example, my rent. So how much money did I need to make to pay my rent if I was not able to operate in the fitness industry, right? Because a restraint of trade is 12 months, where you have to drop off the face of the industry essentially for 12 months. And so fought that, ended up winning it, which was amazing. It took a lot, but it also left me with a hefty legal fee, right? That I then had to pay off in my first year of business. So that was a huge lesson that I learned. What did I learn from that lesson? To be completely honest, I actually did nothing wrong. So it wasn't a thing of I should have done something differently. Now, looking at moving into a second location, am I going to pop up in another gym somewhere? Probably not. So that was a huge lesson. But the biggest lesson I learned in that one was probably, how much did I actually want to do this? Because if this was going to take me out, what would that look like for me? And so that was a resounding, I want to do this every day. So that was a big lesson.
Great lesson. And that's kind of like where I think a lot of people have gone through over the last few years through COVID, where it's been tough. They've been closed down. Some have had it way tougher than others, and everybody's had to make that call. Do I want to keep going? Do I want to push it on? And I think that also comes when a competitor opens up down the road. Someone goes to someone else down the road, and you got to second guess yourself, and you always got to step and say, hey, do you want to continue doing this? And I think that's a really good lesson, because early on the piece, it obviously, who wants to go through that, but you're going through that, and it's getting that fire in your belly, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was a huge lesson. Other lessons, I've had a staff member take me to Fair Work. So that was a huge lesson in and of itself, just to make sure your contracts are tight.
Just an average day in running a business, sounds like.
The funny thing about it is I had a client at the time who was CEO of a
Right.
company of like 1,200 employees. And he said to me, he's like, Beck, one day this is going to be your everyday,
Mm.
where you're just, yeah, I've just got this thing that's just going on. It's going to be fine. And so that was a huge lesson again. In all of these things you learn, right? I
Mm.
learned what not to do.
Yep.
I learned my rights. I learned the law better.
Yep.
Like all these things. It's interesting. Like I had a business degree. I did not know how to run a business at all. And then you just kind of get like thrown in the deep end, and they're just like, hey, so just run a business, but also on top of that, know how to pay your taxes, know how to do your books, know how to market, know how to sell, know how to grow a team, know how to scale, know how to do contracts right, membership contracts plus employment contracts. Make sure you're paying people correctly. What's an award rate? Where do you find an award rate? Just this whole world that no one tells you.
Yeah, outstanding.
And so,
It's just
yes,
everywhere.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So that was a big lesson.
And we're still,
COVID was a big lesson.
COVID was a big lesson. All right, so let me just change the subject a little bit. And
Yes.
you mentioned before you didn't know marketing, but we did another training to our ninjas in our program around one of the skill sets I think you have. Everybody has what I call a superpower. I think you have a great superpower. One of the superpowers I think you have is like a sparkle effect. You give some sparkles, what I call sparkles. You give magic out to your community. You've got a great community, a thriving studio. You're about to open another one up, and you're giving the sparkle out. People, I always say people don't come to the equipment, people come for the outcome. But I think I heard a saying, I don't know who it was from. I think on the podcast, maybe I'm quoting somebody, but don't know the name, but the name will come to me. But it's also about the experience that you give there. And I think you give a great experience in what you do. I think it was actually, it'll come to me. Yes. Beck, what are your thoughts about that? Tell me how you give an amazing experience to your community, because I know you do.
Yeah. So when we set up the studio, that was one of the key points, is that we had to create an exceptional experience every time someone entered the studio for a couple of reasons. Number one, the reason why we created RBB and HIIT-to-the-beat, yes, was to give people exceptional workouts, but it was to provide somewhere that it became a lifestyle for our people. And I had such a heart and a desire to create a space where people felt really, really safe. Being from the generalized fitness industry, I saw that was not the case in commercial gyms. And so I wanted to create that. So that for us came down to a few different points. There's the people power, right? So it's hiring the right team. And training your team to share in the same mission statement, values, and culture that you're trying to create, right? Because it takes 2 seconds to break culture. It takes years to create it. So you need to start from the beginning, a really solid foundation of what do I want my culture and my team to abide by, and what do I want that to feel like. And so we have a really, really strict onboarding process for our team, where if they don't fit with the team, they're not actually right for us. And so I'm heavily invested in the team and ensuring that they feel like they can give the same experience to our members that I would want to give to my members. And so that's taken a lot. The other component of this is creating a space, right? So creating a beautiful environment. It's the cool lighting, it's the nice flooring, it's the mirrors, it's the pads and tampons in the toilet. Like it's these little tiny touches that makes a member feel like this is my home. But the other part of that is that's really interesting is I don't think it needs to be perfect. Like, our studio is in no way perfect. It's not a $500,000, $1 million fit out.
Yep.
It is, the community is interwoven into the fabric of the space, and it is their second home. So to them, they're the first person to put their hand up and say, like, hey, I just realized that there's like a little bump in there. My husband's a chippy or whatever. He can just come in and fix it. You know, like,
Wow.
it's their second space as well. And they only do that because we provide somewhere that we are heavily invested, and we have systems upon systems upon systems in place that make it look like we're sporadically connecting with our team, but we're not. With our members, we're not. Yes, we love them and we care for them, but there is a system around how we make sure that they feel loved, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's not just you're accidentally leaving the tampons in the bathroom. It's a system. It happens all the time, because the first time I went in the studio, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So all those little touch points are in there because they've got to be there to make them feel comfortable all around. And I see that you do a magic job on that. So well done on that.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, and it even comes down to a customer journey, right? Connecting with a customer. We have a way that you create a customer journey, but then even just in my trainers, like with our closed members Facebook group, there's a system around how we connect with our members in that. And we have a system around events, and we have a system around group chats, and like, everything is systemized.
Yeah, great piece of marketing there. Beck, this has been outstanding. I've got a lot more things to ask you, but I think I'm pretty happy how we got today. And I'm probably just one more quick marketing tip that you could, one of the great marketing things that you currently are doing now or have done that's worked really well. Could you just maybe share one of your strategies that have worked well over the time?
Oh, give away my secrets?
Just give away one, if we can part with one.
Yeah, totally. So something that is preached at Com is to have multiple funnels, right? So you know that someone has to see you 7 times before they take action. So it's our responsibility to do everything we can to be in their face as often as we possibly can. So I know it's not a thing of being like, hey, this is my ideal marketing strategy, but an ideal situation is to start with 1 funnel and then make it 2, and then make it 3, and then make it 4. Something Instagram and TikTok is where it's at. That's all I'm saying. So we haven't really doubled. We just started in the world of TikTok. We're investing in TikTok ads and moving into that world. But our biggest membership growth is in Instagram. So start today, organically posting once a day, every day. Create a plan, make it look like what you want people to think your studio looks like. Where for us, it's incredible workouts, community feel, pretty studio, right?
Love it.
And so we focus on female community, mums and bubs, just that whole world. It's there. So people can go, they can see it. We have people who join and say they've been following us on Instagram for years, right? So that's our thing. So start with organic posting every day, once a day. Engage with your people. Reply to their comments, reply to their messages, actively seek out people, and you'll create a really good little marketing bundle there.
Love it. Very, very good. Now, Beck, what's your Instagram if those who want to follow your magic and what you do?
Thank you. Well, you've got 2. So there's RBB, which is RBB Fitness Studio, all one word. Even if you just type in RBB Fitness, you'll find us. And my personal is Rebekah Strachan. So BEKSTRACHAN.
Awesome. We'll put those in the show notes. Beck, this has been outstanding. I'm definitely going to have you back. I want to continue these conversations. I think they're great. And I think you do a great job to empower entrepreneurship, female entrepreneurship, and especially, someone who's really at the early stages of their business career and going, what the hell did I get myself into and how do I get myself out? So well done, especially on RBB. I'm here loving to hear the continued success that you're having. So good. Thank you so much for the insights that you share. Thank you. Enjoy your trip to Bali. I think you got a holiday coming up, yeah?
Yes, I do on Saturday. I'm so excited. Thank you.
So good. Team, if you've enjoyed this episode and you want more, all you have to do is you can check this out on your favorite app, which is Spotify, or you want to go to Apple Podcast. You can listen. You can watch this on YouTube too. If you really want to see how young Beck looks, jump onto YouTube or go to Com Marketing, and you can see the RBB Youth Experience happening in a store near you. Team, I'll catch you next time on the Marketing Muscle Up podcast show. Bye for now.